guys, welcome back to Starbeam Bios, I mean Starry Waves. And here we have Ceunia. BTWs after Ceunia, I'm going to be doing other biographies, maybe a few Amber Spring biographies, if I can find them. Okay, let's get into it. Through the morn, she didn't cower, but with the one spell, everyone knew her power. The Sorceress. Born 10:37 a.m., died 11:14 a.m. Reigned from 10:57 a.m. to 10:85 a.m. Married to Valentine Lucitor. Children Asteroida Butterfly and Meteorite Butterfly. Ceunia Butterfly, the first daughter of Queen Thea and King Huxley, came to Mewni in the year 1037. At midnight of the 30th day of Rabbit, just as the moons Darlene, Darhenia, and Diana lined up in the starry sky for the first time in centuries. Having inherited her father's chocolate skin, brown hair, and green eyes, Ceunia had green quadruple moons on her cheeks, a trait common with the Mew women in the butterfly bloodline. Since childhood, Ceunia has shown herself to be a curious, determined, and intelligent little girl, eager to learn, and fascinated with fantasy, mystery, superstitions, and the supernatural. She was quick on her feet and extremely pragmatic, albeit slightly impatient, ambitious, and impulsive. The figure of the ethereal, mature, and all-knowing Queen Ceunia the Sorceress would only come into shape many years later. It is also worth mentioning, Ceunia was extremely close with her family, especially her younger siblings White Dwarf, White, and Moonween, Mewni, who affectionately called her their older sister Nia. The three shared an unbreakable bond, with Ceunia often acting motherly towards her siblings and reading them mysterious fantasy stories every night before bedtime. Other activities enjoyed by the butterfly young also included stargazing on clear nights and playing board games such as Monopoly or Uno. Yet, as her future title suggests, it wasn't long before Ceunia found her true interest, the art of magic and sorcery. Some say it happened after she witnessed her mother, Thea, use her platinum touch, while others claim it began when she came across an old TCG deck in the princess's bedroom when looking for a new board game to play with her siblings. She became an avid player of Dungeons and Dragons and reader of the Good Witch Zura book series, coming to develop a passion for the moon, tarot, alchemy, and astrology. Even her clothing changed drastically, with the princess giving reference to the looser robes, capes, and cloaks, and almost always displaying her lunar motifs in her vestments. Her brother often joked that she'd look like a witch if it weren't for the missing hat, sending Ceunia on offended tangent of how a sorceress is nothing like a witch. When her grandmother Astra died in 1046, Ceunia saw for the first time her family engulfed in grief and sorrow, commenting in her diary, "It made her feel so disheartened. She wanted to make sure nothing would ever hurt them again, and that she only wished she could have done something to save her Nana." As such, from this point on, she begins acting protective towards her family, placing good luck charms outside their bedroom doors, and even reading their tarot and astrology every day to be warned of any incoming danger. In 1046, Ceunia was kidnapped by a group of mercenaries demanding a ransom from her mother. The princess recounts the experience in her journal. Although scary, the attempt was brief. It wasn't long until I heard an alarm and saw a bright beam of light through the carriage doors. Then I saw it, Mama, soaring high in the sky, big wings and 6 arms. Just one look from her and the perpetrators were gone. I never knew such magic was possible. Princess Ceunia stood starry-eyed as her mother slowly hovered to the ground and hugged her tightly. The event especially witnessing her mother's power would leave a mark on Ceunia. A sentiment evident by the 30 more pages of comments in the last short sentence in that entry. I want to be powerful. If Ceunia had already been keen on magic before, after the incident she became completely obsessed in knowing anything and everything she could about it, and becoming the most proficient magic practitioner in the land. She began inquiring me about its origins and properties, apart from visiting the Firefly Library and getting her hands on any volume even remotely associated with sorcery. Not feeling satisfied with just knowing about magic, Ceunia soon moved on to try to do magic herself, even before receiving the wand. While it is true that Queen Helia, the Light of Power, and Queen Helena the Persistent had accomplished such a feat, it is worth noting they were both day queens with particular situations, and that Ceunia's likability of succeeding was at most unlikely. Nevertheless, who was I to veto the princess's search for knowledge? As such, when Ceunia came to me asking for guidance, I encouraged her to start with the most simple spells, Levitato, and see where it would lead her to. It was months of trying with no success, yet the princess didn't give up. Against all odds, her hard work, willpower, and concentration eventually paid off. Mere weeks before her 13th birthday, in 1050, when she awoke with her powers and shouted, "Levitato!" just in time to prevent her sister Mewni from falling off the tower of her bedroom to her death. On the same year, Butterfly Kingdom hosted the first Silver Bell Ball in decades. Although not quite the dancer, Ceunia spent the night bragging to her chosen waltz partner that she was the best magic user in her age, even briefly using Levitato on a chair to impress Lake Johansson. Everything was going well until she was paired with Valentine Lucitor, the prince of the underworld, who enchanted flaming entrance and smoldering charms. Only heart he couldn't captivate was the princess's. Described in Ceunia as a fellow TCG aficionado and magic lover and user, those being the only redeeming characteristics of that annoying cocky hack. Prince Valentine, the self-entitled greatest sorcerer alive, directly bashed on Ceunia's claims with the pair spending the night taunting and provoking each other. Ceunia was left particularly irked after Valentine commented on the laughability of her title, saying that her knowledge was barely skimming the surface of magic on the universe, evident by her obliviousness to demon magic or even the dark arts. From that day on, Ceunia always sulked at the sight of Valentine. On the other hand, she reports having no ill feelings towards his twin sister Lila. Anyway, Valentine's comments affected Ceunia more than she was willing to admit. Whether it be for knowing deep down Valentine was more skilled than her, or for realizing there was a lot she didn't know yet, she spent the following weeks rattled, striving to push her limits and improve her magic. She grew more rebellious and defiant, her inability to perform new magic only adding to her frustrations. Cenia's misbehavior would reach its peak when she was caught attempting to enter the forbidden section of the Firefly Library, resulting in the princess being caught in an eternal temporal loop. She was eventually freed by Queen Thea, but not without a scolding, especially after learning Ceunia was there to look for information on both imperial and dark magic, determined to overcome her plateau of knowledge. Thea met me soon after seeking advice on how to handle Ceunia's situation. The response I gave was the following. Although I understand your concern, to deny Ceunia of such knowledge would only make her to desire it even more. Dark magic and demon magic both exist in our universe, apart from the infinite more forms beyond that. It would be foolish to pretend they're not a reality. The question is, how long do you really think you can shield her from the truth without pushing her away? Ceunia was grounded for a week after her infraction. However, when her punishment was over, her mother surprised her by revealing how to disable the Firefly Library's security system, asking Ceunia only to promise her she wouldn't do anything she'd regret. The princess replied by hugging her mother, assuring her she'd never end up like Queen Hikitia. Ceunia had been well into her research of dark magic by the time she turned 14 and inherited the royal magic wand in 1051, evident by the princess's own tardiness to the ceremony for being caught up in the library. The wand changed from her mother's diamond cane into a golden moon staff, among the longest forms recorded to this day. Yet the biggest surprise of the night came when her parents offered Ceunia a scholarship to Elfindor, studying the history of magic, which the princess respectfully declined. In her diary, Ceunia explains her motives. I told Mama I'd never end up like Queen Hikitia, but that doesn't mean I can't follow some of her footsteps. Information on dark magic is indeed scarce, ambiguous, and doubtful. But now that I have the wand, my studies can truly begin. I can't guarantee what I'll be doing as entirely allowed, which is why I opted to not to risk putting my family name on the line and getting an expulsion from Elfindor. In that sense, nay, I won't be like the necromancer. For someone who already had a history with magic and who would go on to become one of the most powerful butterfly queens, Ceunia's first spells were rather simple and functional, with the princess prioritizing utility over spectacularity. These included the Cancelling Dome, a spell to contain magic within a barrier, and the Ethereal Grasp, a more complicated enchantment able to remove part of the magical essence from an object or being. Her iconic later spells like the Eclipse Transfiguration would mostly circle around moons, transformation, magic, and the elements. Whether or not Ceunia was also performing dark magic spells instead of studying them is unknown. Said it wasn't long before Ceunia found herself drawn to study the essence of life and the way magic fuels it through the universe. She began by studying the lunar cycles, tracing a map of the Lee lines that ran through the continent of New Mewni, and finding the Great Mewni Rock, home of the Butterfly Castle, to be a major converging point. Her studies were, at first, simple experiments, such as embedding several objects with magic and manipulating the amount of light received by them. Her breakthrough came when she used the Ethereal Grasp to examine their saturation of magic, concluding the more exposed to light they were, the more excess magic they had absorbed. The following excerpt comes from the princess's very own notebook of results. As proven by my latest experiments, what the more spiritual books claim is indeed true. There is magic energy all around us, flowing through the universe and manifesting in each being. The radiation we receive from light is proof the more exposed we are to it, the more magic we have inside of us. There is light and radiation everywhere, yet we only seize a little fraction of it. The potential of that is unused energy of magic is boundless as reality itself. From then on, Ceunia studies became harder to trace. Perhaps tempted by the seductive appeal of the forbidden arts, it is known by her experiments became less orthodox, with the princess becoming less prone to write them down. Some historians claim this was to avoid trouble and confrontation due to the dubious morality her journey had taken, while others pinned the reasons as to avoid her findings falling into the wrong hands. Either way, the only information about this stage of Ceunia's life comes from third-party reports, from maids and knights, describing strange lighting flashes coming from her bedroom in the midst of the night, along with whispers and a certain warmth filling the corridor. After this gap in documentation comes from Inter-Wizard Tournament of 1053, an event which gathered the best young sorcerers from across every realm, all competing for the title of Young Sorcerer Supreme by casting the most impressive spell. Ceunia was the first to enroll and put her name in the Goblet of Flames, beating Valentine Lucitor to it. For her demonstration, she began leveling and destroying a small patch of grass with a simple fire spell. She then proceeded to whisper some intangible words into the wand, after which a beam of light shone over the ravaged area, and the previous plant life regrew immediately, astonishing everyone in the audience. She called it the spell of life, described as a high concentration, high skill enchantment capable of reintroducing life to even the most desolated land. The competition ended with Ceunia taking home the title of Sorcerer Supreme, but not before bragging it to a humiliated runner-up Valentine. The spell of life remains one of the most important spells created by a butterfly queen, eventually becoming a pivotal piece of the Phantom War, but everything at its time. A few weeks later, there was a colossal wildfire in the forest above the Lucitor Kingdom. Regardless, the Royal Fire Brigade best efforts to put it out. Their attempts to tame the flames before they reached Moonbrook only seemed to make them stronger, to the point not even Queen Thea was able to extinguish the fire. It took Princess Ceunia's intervention with the Seven Seas Diluvium spell to put the inferno out. When her mother asked how she succeeded, Ceunia replied, "Such fire was no ordinary occurrence. It was fueled by demon magic, specifically so that it grew stronger with time. So I acted accordingly by nipping it in the bud at once." Nevertheless, when clearing out the charred land to make way to use the spell of life, Ceunia found a book with a note that read, "For Princess Ceunia." The volume titled The Grimoire of Demon Magic, and it instantly became the main focus of the princess's studies, in addition to learning a bit of demonic. It was through the grimoire that she was introduced to tattoos, runes, spell rings, and glyphs, and how their effects can enhance a spell's results even change them altogether. Furthermore, she concluded spells that involve wand movement, dance patterns, or drawing figures through patterns are much more powerful. Following in the studies of her ancestor Skyrim, the Queen of Hours, magic is connected to imagery, If we show it what we want to do, it will better understand our commands, she wrote in her notebook. However, what spiked her curiosity the most was the discovery of hellfire, the inextinguishable flame that burns in the underworld, and reportedly was the spark of life that powers skeletons and the undead. Knowing more about it was a subject that kept her awake at night, especially to answer the question, what makes someone alive, and what if I could cheat death? Intent on getting answers, it was then that Ceunia had the idea that would change history forever, to steal hellfire and play with life. Planning such a heist wasn't an easy process. Ceunia had used the all-seeing eye spell to study the routines of the guards at the Lucitor Castle, noting down the best times to act. By combining the change of the guard with an invisibility cloak, she was able to infiltrate the flame room, extracting a spark from the grand fire and placing it inside a glass bottle, convincing herself it was for the good of knowledge, and that all would be forgiven if she later returned it. However, considering the kind of experiments Ceunia enacted, there would be a lot more to forgive. From here on, the information that follows is solely based on my testimony, as all records of Ceunia's studies from this part of her life have been since erased. And for good reason. They essentially broke every law of nature and messed with the forbidden arts, like Ceunia manipulating the life essence of skeletons through hellfire, or using it to bring objects to life. Her most serious infractions came when she began using runes and combined with the flame, covering her arms in glyphs. She enchanted astral projections to essentially fool death and see what would happen to any spell she previously cast. Concluding, runes were able to extend magic's durability beyond the user's depth, almost bending time to their will. Any magical object engraved with the runes wouldn't disappear until upon the demise of the caster, thus finally overcoming the eons-old durability paradox. Some unforeseen side effects from Ceunia's brushes with death came when her soul kept accidentally being sent to the underworld while she was in limbo, which the princess considered a major inconvenience. Furthermore, it seemed constantly dying and coming back to life had begun to take a toll on Ceunia, with servants commenting the princess's lack of energy and mood swings, in addition to her frail figure, eye bags, and seemingly paler skin. Her siblings even began distancing themselves and avoiding her presence altogether, despite her willingness to go on and obtain more knowledge, or her apparent disregard for the high price she was paying for it. Her love for her family was what ultimately drove Ceunia to put an end to the dangerous practices, with the princess intending to return the hellfire she had stolen and make things right. However, her plans were thwarted with the news of Queen Thea's terminal disease in late 1054. Already covered in the previous chapter, desperate, not wanting to lose her mother, like she had lost her grandmother, without doing anything to save her, Ceunia resorted to her recently acquired knowledge about runes, conjuring a pattern that would stop the flow of time through Queen Thea's and thus preventing her infection from spreading. Unfortunately, the catch came when she realized she would need hellfire to seal the spell, virtually giving up on the idea of returning it. I'd spend the rest of my life with a bounty on my head if it means saving my mother, she wrote in her diary. Although it took a bit of convincing, Her mother, Thea, eventually agreed, and Ceunia cast the runes on her mother. While keeping their origin a secret from the time being, the spell worked and the royal family rejoiced in the saving of the queen's life. Nevertheless, Ceunia barely had time to celebrate, as not long after, she was summoned in the underworld by Prince Valentine. Ceunia complied with the request, meeting the Lucifer siblings alone in their throne room. Whereas Lilith remained quiet for the duration of the meeting, Valentine accused Ceunia of stealing hellfire and breaking the laws of nature through the use of demon magic. Although Ceunia denied it at first, the princess's defense was quickly shut down after Valentine revealed he had sensed her soul's presence in the underworld, putting two and two together and reaching the conclusion there was hellfire involved. While Ceunia expressed some regret for stealing the hellfire and ultimately being unable to return it, as she put it, she would not stand punishment for something she didn't repent. That being breaking the laws of nature in her quest for knowledge and refusing to stand trial. It was then that, looking for a way out, she proposed a deal. She would willingly go and serve her sentence if Valentine defeated and captured her in combat, amused at the prospect of finally proving which of the two was the best sorcerer. Valentine accepted, and thus the game of cat and mouse between Valentine and the princess began. Thenceforth, in an almost routinely way, Ceunia began experiencing weekly attempts to be captured by Valentine. What the remaining nobility saw as friendly playdates were in reality ferocious battles between the pair. Though many historians doubt their actual seriousness due to it always ending in a draw, these attempts, which I admit were almost better than any piece of entertainment I've seen, went anywhere from the simple hexes or fights with knives and daggers to full-on sorcerer's duels using actual magic, which grew larger and drew more enjoyment from both with each time they met. A curious fact is that when asked by Rhea Redbird if she enjoyed Valentine's company, Ceunia was disgusted at the idea, though she was secretly disappointed if he failed to show up. This back and forth would have likely lasted longer if it weren't for the intervention of Lilith Lucifer in 1056, reportedly wary of her brother's incompetence, who launched a direct attack on the princess's tower. Although there were no injuries reported, and the tower was quickly relocated, not everything was solved, as Queen Thea demanded explanations from her daughter and why the Lucifers were attacking during peace times. Unable to hold the truth any longer, Ceunia confessed everything: her studies, the conflict, and most of all, the treatment of her disease. As discussed in her biography, Queen Thea decided to organize a dinner at St. Star's Day of 1056 between the royal families in order to restore some peace. Reports from one of the royal guards indicate that everything had been going smoothly until the Princess Lilith snapped and blatantly called Ceunia a hypocrite and a liar, incapable of learning from her mistakes, who had supposedly stolen more hellfire after their meeting. Tensions rose when Ceunia denied Lilith's claims, who got aggravated for being deemed a liar and demanded to search Ceunia's room for evidence. In turn, upsetting the latter, a sea of insults followed between the princesses, with both families, except for Prince Valentine, who had remained notoriously quiet, joining in to defend their honor. The following details are nebulous, but it's generally agreed upon that soon after a heated argument broke out, the room itself had become sweltering, smoke filling the air. Before long, flames had reached the dining hall, which the Lucifers immediately identified as hellfire and seemingly confirmed Ceunia had indeed taken more. Feeling cheated and played, the Lucitors left the flaming room in burning rage, but not before declaring they would come back for Ceunia. Forensic evidence following the fire proved that while circumstances of its beginning were unknown, it had indeed originated from Ceunia's room, further implying that she had hellfire in her possession. Unable to explain her innocence to her mother, and even wondering herself how it had been possible, Ceunia was grounded by Queen Thea, who prohibited her from leaving her room until the conflict had been solved. Then comes early 1057. After weeks of uncertainty, the Lucitors fulfilled their promise and had an army seize Butterfly Castle to retrieve Ceunia, so she'd be properly judged by Queen Ferdinand himself. As reported in the last biography, Queen Thea refused to comply with their demands, hearing some knights coming on the preparation of the army. Ceunia would have evaded her mother's orders and left her room to join her in the battlefield, claiming, "If I wouldn't be fair for someone else it wouldn't be fair for someone else to fight her battles." The queen, however, told her the word is mightier than the sword, assuring Ceunia there would be no bloodshed, or so she wished. In a late entry in her diary, Ceunia reports, "While Mama attempted a peaceful negotiation, I saw Valentine's arm twitch slightly. He appeared to struggle against some invisible force until he suddenly flared the flaming arrow in my direction. The following seconds felt like an eternity. Valentine released the arrow. I froze with fear and closed my eyes till I heard the sound of metal bashing against metal. When I opened my eyes again, I saw Mama turn to stone. Everything else unraveled from there. The battle began right away, if we could even call it that. There are multiple reports by various witnesses. However, the most accurate accounts come from Sir Derek Flowers. As both armies stood still in shock for the Queen's demise, Princess Ceunia broke the silence with a loud wail. She then charged at Prince Valentine, tears running down her cheeks and pure hatred in her eyes, as she cast a blade with her wand and scarred his face, muttering some unintelligible words. The lad didn't wince. He took it rather gracefully, nodding and backing up as the princess fell crying on her knees. The Lucitors' offensives retreated before I could order any attack. We have won, but at what cost? Regardless, the Battle of the Single Whale led to two events. The first was the ascension of Ceunia as Queen Butterfly, despite her refusal to have a proper coronation, for insisting it was only temporary and that she'd find a way to save her mother and restore the throne to her. The second, directly resulting from the first, was the official war declaration issued by Ceunia as the first royal act, going against the better advice of her council and family. The new queen refused to listen to any reason. There was only pain and vengeance in her eyes, Lady Carrie Forrest wrote in a letter to her husband. Meanwhile, as Ceunia prepared a retaliation, disturbing news came from the Lucitor kingdom. King Ferdinand and Queen Fridencia had both been assassinated, and the blame was conveniently placed on some butterfly spy, only aggravating the already high tensions between both realms. The new monarch was yet to be announced by the time Ceunia challenged Lilith and Valentine once again to bring the conflict to the battlefields and end the war. That was part 1 of Ceunia Butterfly the Sorceress. I would have done it all in one go, but it's really cold out here, and my arms are already feeling numb. So see you in a few days with part 2.